a legend and symbol in his own time. He challenged the dark skies of intolerance and frustration. Now, Martin Luther King was talking about Jackie Robinson, who overcame a life of prejudice and racism to become one of the most iconic people of the 20th century. Now, today, the show is going to be based around Jackie Robinson. And fortunately, we have Tony on the show who knows quite a bit about him, so let's just jump right into things.
Born and raised in Cairo, Georgia, so the Deep South. So for, of course, a black man, especially during the time, that's
not the best place to be.
No, he faced a lot of discrimination, intolerance. He had to endure so many things that we can't even imagine. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Jackie Robinson. So of course, we went over he grew up in the Deep South. His brother Frank, an older brother of his, really inspired him to pursue sports, his interest in sports. So Jackie played football, baseball, track and basketball. So he was
like all throughout
very versatile. He's a terrific athlete. Yes. His brother was a silver medalist in the Olympics. So that's
part of an athletic family. I remember we were talking beforehand. We whipped out a stat. He had how many home runs was it?
Jackie Robinson?
Yeah.
He had 137 in his career.
137 home runs. So
not a very long career. It's about 10-year career. So also something else that he went through. He was drafted by the Army, but of course it was segregated.
Mm-hmm.
So he only fought with other blacks like
on the front lines and things like that.
And this is probably a huge reason why he was picked, was the discipline that was just put into him through the Army, of course, because you need discipline in the Army.
Yeah, that's right. Because we were talking about how being a black baseball player, obviously the first one at his time, they didn't choose him because he was able to fight back and because he was able to go against these people. They chose him because when someone threw a baseball directly at his face during a game, he wouldn't get up infuriated and run at the pitcher. He'd get hit, fall down, and walk back.
Yeah, and
he kept his cool, and that was one of the most important things. That's another reason
that's why he was picked, because there was a ton of talent in the Negro Leagues, which of course was a league that was developed by blacks so they could play, and because they weren't allowed in Major League Baseball, so they just created their own league, and it got pretty big, and there were some great players, but he was picked because of his talent. He was good, not the best, but his attitude was...
But it was his attitude that outmatched all the other players.
So, his ability to take all the intolerance and all the hate that was lashed out towards him, and without reacting in a poor manner that would tarnish... That would not only tarnish himself, but also the entire black community, just because... a white baseball player can throw a baseball at his head because that happened. It would happen a few times per game. But if a black person did that to a white person, then it would just be all hell would break loose. All the white. I mean, it would just it'd be terrible. And what you were saying before, with all that being said, he still was a pretty darn good baseball player, wasn't he? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about his career. So he was signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers, played a year in Montreal for a farm system team, the Montreal Royals, I believe it was. The next year, he joined the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. The first game he played was opening day, April 15th, which is Jackie Robinson Day, of course. And now his number's retired.
So no one can use number 42.
And every day on
Jackie Robinson
Day, April 15th. Every player on every team wears number 42.
And how confusing is that? Well, anyway, that'll wrap up our section of the show.
All right, so I'm joined here with a longtime local Menominee Fall native, Thomas Ishii. He's been around for a very long time. He saw Jackie Robinson play back in the 50s, and he lived through and experienced the civil rights movement. What is your fondest memory of Jackie Robinson, either during or after his playing career?
I think probably the most vivid memory I have of him is when he just came out in the field. I was a young kid. I was only 6 years old. But I do remember, my dad pointing out that this guy, did something special. He wasn't really a great baseball player at that point. He was at the end of his career. So I didn't see him do a lot of outstanding things out in the baseball field. I could say, man, I saw him hit 3 home runs or whatever, but I did see him play. He was a good athlete, probably a better athlete than he was just a baseball player. He was I believe he played football at UCLA, and he was an All-American.
Yeah. I
believe he was I don't know if he made the Olympics, but I remember he was a tremendous track athlete.
Yeah, his brother was a silver medal Olympus.
I know his brother. Yeah, he was also a good athlete in track and field too. So I mean, there's a lot of things as an athlete Jackie Robinson probably could have done, but he picked this
and broke down a huge barrier that had been up since or the first time ever in modern league baseball. Because of course, early on, anybody could really play on a team, but once the Jim Crow laws really went into effect, pretty much everything just kind of broke down from that. So
and he wasn't the only one. I mean, there were other really good players. Some players that probably were better than him that broke in. Maybe the season after he came in.
Roy Campanella,
and Don Newcomb.
Don Newcomb.
Larry Doby.
Yeah.
In the American League, he was the first player to play in the American League.
Yeah.
He played for the Cleveland Indians, I believe. He was a better player, probably than Jackie Robinson was. And of course, as time went on, the great Henry Aaron. We can go on and on.
Yeah.
But there were probably a lot more players that were better than him as baseball players. But he was picked. He was handpicked, and of course did great things not only for the black community, but really for baseball and society in general. So.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back and talk about when you watched him play. Mm-hmm. How did at that moment? Did you know that you were witnessing history? Kind of I mean, of course he had been in the league for about 9 years at that point, whatever. Right. But did you still know at the time? I know you're only 6, but or at least in a few years after that, did you look back and be like, wow, I saw? Oh,
absolutely. When you got to be probably 10, 15 years old, and then all the stories used to come out about what he went through, how his, he'd go to the ballpark and get abused, and he'd go home and they'd be throwing stuff at his house and death threats and the like, and you go, God, I witnessed something that was bigger than all of us,
Yeah.
But at that point, when I was a kid, I didn't. But as I got older, I realized that wow, this was really something special.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Tom.
It was a pleasure.